This started as a casual Dark Souls run. But the longer I played, the more it turned into something else. A full clear run. No skips, no rushing. Just clearing everything as efficiently as possible. And somehow it went way better than expected. Before I even get into the run itself, there's one thing I do differently right from the start. Most players pick the Master's Key here. I don't. Instead, I go with Twin Humanities. And there's actually a reason for that. Early on, I want to get as many upgrade materials as possible without wasting souls. So I use Humanity to boost item discovery, which helps me get more Titanite shards early and scale my weapon much faster. It's a small decision, but it makes a big difference over the course of the run. From here, I start the game normally, but the goal is always the same. Loot everything, kill everything at least once, and make all tailcuts. We start things off in the Undead Asylum, just making our way through the area normally. We grab the Estus flask, pick up the key, and keep moving forward. Pretty early on, the Twin Humanity already start paying off, since we get the Hollow Soldier's shield as a drop along the way. Once we reach the boss fog, we open the fight the classic way, with a plunge attack. And yeah, that fight doesn't last very long. With the Asylum Demon down, we make our way to the Firelink Shrine. This is where things get a bit more interesting. Early on, I like to get as much health as possible, so I actually kill the crestfallen warrior for his souls to get an extra level. It's a bit risky, but it's worth it. Right after that, I head over to the graveyard. The idea here is to bait one of those skeletons, preferably one of the big ones, and get it to fall off the cliff. It's a bit awkward to pull off sometimes, but if it works, it's basically a free level. From here we move on to the Undead Burg. At the start I picked the warrior class. That's mainly because it already has enough strength and dexterity to use the Uchigatana early on. After leveling up with the souls from the Asylum Demon, we can head straight to the merchant and, well, kill him. That gives us access to the Uchigatana right away. After picking up the gold pine resin and taking down the Black Knight, we move on to the Taurus Demon. The fight itself is pretty straightforward and doesn't really cause any problems. It's over in about a minute. Next up is the first Tailcut of the run. I usually position myself in this corner here and wait for the dragon to come down. With the gold pine resin active, we have more than enough damage to cut off the tail. From here we continue through the area, deal with the Black Knight and run into the boar. Which in this case just decides to kill itself in the fire. Not exactly planned, but I'll take it. We keep going, clear out the parish and free Lordrek along the way. And before we move to the Gargoyle fight, I like to take him out as well, just to get the Ring of Favor and protection. Even though we haven't upgraded our weapon at this point, the gold pine resin gives us a huge damage boost. That's why I can actually show the Gargoyle fight in full here. Usually this fight can be pretty rough early on, but with this setup it becomes a lot more manageable. As you can see, the damage more than makes up for the lack of upgrades, and we even managed to get the second Tailcut. By this point I've built up around 25,000 souls already. I intentionally haven't spent them yet. Instead, I use them to buy the Crest of Artorias and upgrade the Uchigatana to +5. The idea here is pretty simple. I'm planning to get most of the souls back by clearing out the forest. And that's exactly what we do next. I take on all the Forest Hunter, but do some mistakes, so it's not the cleanest fight. It gets the job done, but yeah, I could have done it better. After that I join the Covenant and continue clearing the rest of the area. That includes the tree enemies, the giant cats and the mushroom people. Eventually we move on to Ziv. And interestingly the fight goes perfectly. I don't get hit a single time. From this point on, the run really starts to come together. Next, I clear out the rest of the Darkroot garden. Pick up the Wolf's Ring and take down the Moonlight Butterfly using the fire bombs. After that we head over to the Hydra. First I make my way down, deal with the Black Knight and pick up the Grass Crest Shield. Then I take care of the Crystal Golems. And finally go to the Hydra itself. One by one we cut off its heads until the fight is over. At this point everything is going exactly according to my plan. After killing the Golden Golem for the DLC setup later, I move on to Havel. This route works really well because it brings us back to the Taurus Demon's arena. From there we can use this basement key here and head straight into the lower Undead Burg. Of course that means dealing with the Capra Demon next. The fight can be a bit messy, but overall it's not a big problem. Once he's down, we move on to the depths. From here we head straight into the depths. Now it might seem like a good idea to go back to the Firelink Shrine first and return to the Asylum. But instead I would like to grab some large Titanite shards before doing that. I actually leave the Gaping Dragon for later. After clearing out the depths, I make my way back to the Firelink Shrine. From there I return to the Undead Asylum and clear everything again. The stray demon isn't much of a problem either. And we pick up the Peculiar Doll, which we will need later for the Painted World. Now, with the large Titanite shards we got earlier, I head back to Andre and upgrade the Uchigatana further. After that I use Homeward Bone to get straight back to the depths. And now it's finally time. The fight with the Gaping Dragon can't be delayed any longer. With the Uchigatana upgraded and everything set up, we get into the fight. And honestly, it goes pretty smoothly. Getting the Tailcut here is no problem at all. After that, we move on to Blighttown. Yeah, of course I equipped the rusted iron ring from the asylum, which makes moving through the swamp a lot easier. And on the way I also take care of Oswald and pick up his gesture and the ring.
You wolf.
Next up is Quaylark. The fight itself is quick, about a minute long, and I don't get hit a single time. At this point I still haven't died once during the run, which is honestly where I started to realize that this might turn into something more than just a casual playthrough. At this point we ring the second bell of awakening. This opens the gate to Sen's fortress. But before heading there are still a few stops we want to make. First, I finish looting the swamp area. And then I head into the Great Hollow, where I pick up as many items as possible in preparation for coming back later. Thankfully everything goes smoothly here. I never feel comfortable in this area though. After that, we make our way back up towards the Firelink Shrine, grabbing all remaining items along the way, including the Firekeeper soul. Once we are back at the top, I take care of the drakes in the Valley of the Drakes. There are still quite a few items to pick up here. The poison drake especially is dangerous. I actually make a mistake here that almost gets me killed. It's been a while since I last fought it, but somehow I managed to deal with it. The main danger in this area, especially if you approach it from this side, is how narrow everything is. Yeah, the drakes deal massive damage and they are hard to stagger, and you're often fighting in very tight spaces. The ones on the bridge aren't much easier either. Especially the three in the back are difficult to lure forward. Fighting all of them at once in that area would basically be suicide, so I have to rely on the bow and kind of improvise until they commit to an attack that brings them closer to me. After that I quickly head to New Londo to pick up another Firekeeper soul. You get these transient curses, I hope I pronounced them right, right at the start of the area, so I use them and take care of the ghosts to reach it. Back at the Firelink Shrine, I can now upgrade my Estus Flask to +4. That's a huge advantage that definitely pays off later. From here we move on to Zen's Fortress. The fortress is actually one of my favorite areas in the game. It's filled with dangerous enemies like the Titanite demons and Snake Men, packed up with traps, and if you're unfamiliar with it, it can feel pretty confusing. Exploring it for the first time back in the days was an amazing experience for me, and even now I still enjoy it a lot. Right at the start I take care of the Titanite demons. I equip the rusted iron ring and go for a plunge attack. They can be annoying, I know, but I get through without any real issues. I've gotten pretty used to fighting this type of enemy over the years. We continue through the fortress. At this point you can actually use one of the snake men to break open this wall, which would normally require the rolling boulder. If you pick the master key at the start, that's something useful to know, because you can open the cages here. Also, it's very important to talk to Sigmire to progress his questline. At a certain point, after picking up the gold serpent ring here, killing the mimic, clearing all enemies and looting everything in the fortress, we reach the outside area. Of course, I clear everything here as well, pick up all remaining items and take out the giants so they won't interfere during the boss fight. Eventually, we face the Iron Golem, a massive boss, intimidating, probably with a deep backstory. But he doesn't stand a chance. By staying mobile, I can avoid all of his attacks and finish the fight without much trouble. By the way, I should probably mention that the full run will be available on my channel. I'm planning to upload it in 1 hour parts weekly, so feel free to look forward to that. Once we arrive at Anor Londo, we get a proper welcome from the giant knights. After attempting a 2 versus 1 fight, which didn't go perfectly, I reach the first bonfire. The Firekeeper here is important to us since we still need to upgrade our Estus Flask. Which means, yeah, she has to go. Next we deal with the Gargoyle down below. Even though it drops its loot automatically, I still go for the Tailcut. It's just part of the run, and part of my personal challenge. Platforming isn't really my strong suit, but over the time I've found a way that works for me. I usually jump over here to grab the divine blessing from the chest. And then I make my way to this connecting structure here for the bridge. The second Gargoyle isn't a problem either. The Tailcut is done pretty quickly too. And after fighting our way through Anor Londo and getting past the archers, as well as reaching the next bonfire, we are basically ready for the boss already. First, we have to clear out the Silver Knights inside the castle. Of course, I also help Sigmar again when we run into him here. After that, I take care of the Titanite demon as well. By now we have collected enough demon Titanite to transform my weapon using Quelaag's soul. I go with the Chaos Blade. Even though I don't have the optimal stat requirements yet, I upgrade it straight to +5. I also stack up 30 humanity to maximize its damage. As far as I know, that's the best possible setup for the Chaos weapon. And also two-handing the weapon allows me to use it without any issues, so it's time for the boss fight. I decide to take down Smoke first, so I can get Ornstein's ring afterwards. The fight goes perfectly. I don't get hit a single time again. Yeah, it's true. You will see it when I upload the full run. And the damage from the Chaos Blade is just insane. And after receiving the Lord Vessel from Guinevere, we move on to the painted world of Ariamis. Once inside, I immediately start cleaning everything again, killing all enemies and picking up every item. I really like the level design here. The dark atmosphere and the unique enemy types like the Crow Demons. They can be pretty dangerous if you're not used to them. Then there are those, I call them eggheads, egg-like enemies that inflict toxic. And of course the dragon you need to watch out for. All of this can be pretty intimidating at first, but at this point I know the game inside out. Eventually I reach the flooded basement with the bone wheel skeletons. In tight spaces, especially in groups, they are easily some of the most dangerous enemies in the game. They deal a huge damage, are incredibly fast, and can overwhelm you quickly. But if you pull them one by one, they are not much of a threat. The same goes for the dark spirit you encounter here. This is also where you run into King Jeremiah. If you're not prepared, he can be quite dangerous with his chaos pyromancy. At this point, there's really only one thing left to do. Sure, I could show picking up things like the golden coin or the painting guardian set, but just assume that I have cleared and looted everything here. Crossbreed Priscilla is a very mysterious boss. One of the coolest things is that she basically gives you the option to just leave. No one has to die. But of course we're here for the Tailcut. I usually start by hitting her tail once to kind of set it up. Once she turns invisible, I try to track her by following her footprints in the snow. I land a hit or two to make her visible again, circle around her and cut the tail. This is how it's basically done. After reloading the area, we can just get Jeremiah's armor here. From here on, the game opens up a bit. There are different routes we can take. For example, I could go to the Four Kings before placing the Lord Vessel to unlock a hidden covenant. But since I'm mainly a PvE player, I stick to a more traditional route and place the Lord Vessel instead. Before I even think about taking on the Four Lords, I would like to take this opportunity to continue Sigmayr's questline. I spoke to him at Firelink Shrine, which means he will now be in the swamp in Blighttown. So I head down there and help him out once again, by giving him some purple moss clumps. After that, it makes sense to go straight into the Great Hollow, and then do the Ash Lake. The Hydra fight goes smoothly too. I try to completely avoid the black water at the front and position myself in a way that mostly triggers her melee attacks. After that, we move on to the Great Dragon, and here as well we go for the Tailcut to obtain the Dragon Greatsword. Next, I decide to make my way towards Izalith. My main goal here is to get the Sunlight Maggot, which I'll need later in both the DLC and the Tomb of the Giants. So for me this is the logical first choice. I also want to deal with the Bed of Chaos early, since it's the most unpredictable of the Four Lords. I'm never really sure how that fight is going to play out. On top of that, I don't find Izalith's level design particularly appealing. It's cool in its own way, but it's just not really my style. That means we will start with this lava demon here. I'm not entirely sure how I got hit here, but I assumed one of his attacks creates some kind of invisible shockwave. I've never been completely sure how to fight this boss properly. I used to stand in that rock crevice and wait for a specific attack, but a friend told me you can just fight him normally up front. Yes, I know you can cheese him to fall off the cliff, but this is something that I don't think is honorable. So that's what I've been doing ever since, fighting him here, up front. As you can see, our damage is pretty solid, so the fight doesn't last very long. Now that the demon is down and the lava has drained, we moved on to the Taurus demons. They are actually pretty manageable if you know how to handle them. Over time, I've learned how to trigger them one by one. I did consider taking on two at once, but since I hadn't died yet at this point, I didn't want to take any risks. After all, this could have turned into a no-death run still. But spoiler alert, I will die later. We continue through the demon ruins. Another area with a great design. Visually, I really like how overgrown everything looks, how cursed it feels, almost like there used to be a massive fortress here. It's a bit hard for me to put into words, but this area just has a really strong atmosphere. I also like the enemies here. The small fire-spitting statues, the Capra demons, those disgusting giant worms coming out of the ceiling, the ground, the walls. Overall, it's a really epic area. The boss, on the other hand, is a bit disappointing. Sure, another Asylum demon type boss fits thematically in this area, but this is already the third time we are fighting something like this, especially considering what comes next, but yeah, I always felt a bit underwhelmed by this boss. After clearing everything, we move on to the second boss of the area, the Centipede Demon. And compared to the previous boss, this one is the complete opposite. Visually it's great, a masterpiece in my opinion. The fight itself is very unique, since it limits you to small areas that you can stand on. There also is the possibility to expand that space during the fight, if you manage to get the orange lava ring. As you saw, I managed to get both tailcuts here, without any problems, the arm and the tail. Interestingly, both parts stay alive for a short time after being cut off, so you have to keep attacking them until they actually die and drop the ring. After defeating the Centipede Demon, we move deeper into Izalith, now equipped with the ring. Like I mentioned earlier, I really don't like the first part of Lost Izalith. It's incredibly loud because of the lava. The enemies are mostly just those dragon legs, which are honestly just annoying, and overall I just don't like how it looks. This is actually one of the few points in the run where I technically break my rule of killing everything once. I just don't see myself fighting all those dragon legs. There are simply too many of them anyways. So instead I run past them and just loot everything. After that, we reach what I think is the best part of Izalith. These multi-eyed demon creatures, for example. Look at them. They're so good. They have just the right amount of creepiness and threat. Especially for a first-time player. They give you that special shock value in my opinion. After that, we deal with the stone statues and move towards the Ring of Sacrifice. We run into Sigmire again and help him out once more by killing almost all of these enemies for him. I use a bow to achieve that. Since we know that he wants to repay us this time by jumping in and distracting them, we have to make sure he doesn't die. We clear out most of the enemies beforehand, and then we talk to him, and he jumps in and survives because of us. Next, we head up to fight the Titanite demon. The special thing here is that we are fighting on a very narrow bridge, so the risk of falling off and dying is definitely there. But that's still no reason to skip the fight, of course. After that we approached Solaire, who has now gone completely mad. I didn't follow his questline in this run, since that would have required summoning him for certain boss fights. At this point I'm really just here to get the Sunlight Maggot for later. After that we move on to the Pyromancer here, who I believe is one of Quelaag's sisters actually, and then to Nightcurb. This is the third and final time we fight him, which allows us to get his full armor set afterwards. Now, the Bed of Chaos is definitely the part I'm most proud of in this run. The fight itself takes about 3 minutes. Before going in, I equipped this black fire resistance armor here. And I also used the flame stone plate ring, because I was sure I'd get hit by the firestorm attack at one point, but that actually never happened. I only got hit once during the entire fight. I cleared the right side without any problems. On the way back I turned around and used my shield to block the sweeping attack. That's a really crucial part. The path to the left side is definitely harder than the right, but I took it slow and made it somehow through. The way back from the left side has always been the most scary part for me. I've seen people cheesing this fight with bows and arrows or use homeward bones after clearing a side. But my personal tip is simple: turn around, shield up. He will always do the sweep attack, so just block it. That's how I managed to beat the Bed of Chaos without dying. At this point I had completed more than half of the game basically flawless. Getting to the center can also be a tricky thing to do, but that's the part I struggle with the least. Overall, I feel like I handled this fight exactly the way it's meant to be played, to really feel the tension, the adrenaline, and the fear. After finishing Izalith, I move on to the Catacombs. For me, this is the next logical step when deciding the order of the 4 lords. Like I mentioned earlier, depending on your playstyle, especially if you're into PvP, you might choose a different route, and you might go for the 4 kings first. But since that doesn't matter here, I always go to Izalith first, for the Sunlight Maggot, and then come here. The main reason is the Silver Serpent ring. For me, it's one of the most important rings in the game. I usually equip it right after a boss fight to get extra souls. As for the Catacombs themselves, back in the day I absolutely loved this area. It was creepy, it was challenging and very unique in its own way. What made it so special for me wasn't just that there are strong enemies or tight spaces you have to fight in, but instead it was the way it played with your perception. The darkness, especially later in the Tomb of the Giants, creates a completely different atmosphere. Even here in the Catacombs you already feel it. The first time going through this area I constantly felt tense. Another great mechanic is the skeletons reviving. Up until this point, the player isn't used to enemies coming back after being defeated. It took me a while to figure out that the necromancers are responsible for that back in the days. But over time you learn their range in which they can revive skeletons and how to move through the area efficiently. For example, I like to stand here after killing the Black Knight and pull the bone wheels one by one using a bow. Unfortunately, I forgot to buy arrows this time, so I had to improvise with the Dragon Slayer Great Bro. Normally I would lure them in and then just use a plunge attack to take them all out at once, but this time I had to adapt. Now all that's left is the blacksmith and the cleric starting gear. After looting everything and making my way to the blacksmith, it's time for the boss fight. Pinwheel. Visually I think he's actually a really cool boss, like some kind of twisted necromancer creating his own strange creations. But as you can see, the fight is over in a few seconds, so we are just over-leveled for this boss. After defeating Pinwheel, I made my way directly into the Tomb of the Giants. This place, completely shrouded in darkness, is home to massive skeletons and other enemies made up of skeletal parts, which we'll encounter as we go deeper. And this is exactly where we see the main reason why I went to Izalith first. The sunlight maggot illuminates a small area around our character, making it much easier to navigate through the zone. I remember my first time here, wandering around with only a skull lantern in my left hand. The main drawback was that I couldn't use a shield while fighting, which made progressing through the area much more difficult. But strangely enough, I still have positive memories of it. Another really interesting aspect of this area is the NPC encounters. Up until this point, you've interacted with many NPCs in the game, but none of them have truly betrayed you. Patches the hyena is different. He teaches the player that you can't trust everyone in this world. Normally, if you enter the Catacombs before placing the Lord Vessel, you should meet him much earlier, where he already tries to kill you. Unfortunately, I hadn't played the game in a while and accidentally selected yes during our dialogue. Because of that, he assumed I was a cleric, which makes his questline impossible to complete, so I decided to just kill him. In the lower section we encounter the companions of Petrus of Thoroland. If I remember correctly, he fled in panic and left them behind. We defeat the hollowed enemies and rescue the young woman, who will later sell us the wrath of the gods. We continue through the area and reach a very dangerous spot, the chamber where we find the divine ember. It's guarded by multiple skeletons at once. Normally I handle this like the bone wheels in the Catacombs. I lure them in with a bow and try to take out as many as possible with a plunge attack. But I made two mistakes here. First, I didn't expect the skeletons to survive the plunge attack. That means I overestimated my own damage. And second, I took too long to realize it. In that 1 second, I hesitated. I subconsciously debated whether I should keep attacking to kill more of them, or turn around and roll away. That hesitation cost me my life. My first death of the entire run. What a shame. I truly was disappointed, but right after that I show how it should have been done. Lure them in, plunge attack, slight mistake, okay, but create a distance and clean them up quickly. Still really unfortunate how this went. After this mistake I decided to keep going. At first I considered stopping the run, because I had been so proud up to that point and genuinely thought that I could complete the game without dying. Well, except for the mandatory death at Seath. But something made me continue. It could still have been a 1 death run. Spoiler alert, it won't be. After clearing everything, defeating Paladin Leroy, killing the pinwheels and looting all the corpses, I finally reached Nito's Fog Gate. Nito himself is actually a pretty intimidating boss if you don't know how to handle him. He hits hard, deals good damage and is supported by skeletons that constantly revive. If you move too far into the arena, giant skeletons will join the fight as well. So you can easily be in a situation surrounded by many enemies and a big boss attacking you. You can only deal damage from the front, since his cloak makes him immune from the sides and the back. Still, the fight went fine. Nothing spectacular, but solid. After defeating Nito, you can reload the area to obtain Leroy's armor set. Next we head to New Londo's Ruins, a haunting and eerie place. Here the player encounters another unique mechanic: ghosts you can't physically touch. You need to use these transient curses, or be cursed yourself, to interact with them. Using these, we fight our way through the ruins and eliminate all ghosts. The area tells what seems to be a tragic story, but still I like the design of it. At this point our level is high enough to deal with individual ghosts easily. Still, you have to be careful not to get surrounded. There are tight spaces you have to fight in, and sometimes there's also the risk of falling to your death, making this area very dangerous. There are also unique treasures here, and also you can find an NPC who can cure curses, which is useful if you've been affected by the basilisks early in the game. One thing I really love here is the map design. When you drain the water, you realize this area connects to the Valley of the Drakes. That kind of world design is a signature element of Dark Souls. I also really like the Dark Wraith Knights visually. You can actually obtain their armor set by joining the secret covenant I talked about. If you come here before placing the Lord Vessel, you can join the covenant and get the armor for offering humanities. These slime enemies here also stood out to me. The first time I saw them, they genuinely scared me. Even after encountering bosses like the Gaping Dragon, something about them just feels unsettling. Their movement, their attacks, everything about them is just disturbing. But also here, eventually we reach the boss fog. The Four Kings can only be fought if you have the Covenant of Artorias, obtained by defeating Sith. The fight itself is fairly uneventful. I managed to defeat each king before the next one spawns. If you take too long, you can end up fighting multiple at once. I've never personally experienced more than 4, but I've heard it's possible. Not sure if that's true though. Either way, the fight goes very much in our favor. No surprises, no complications. 3 of the 4 lords are defeated now. The only one remaining is Seath the Scaleless. To reach him we enter the Duke's archives. The armored boars at the entrance are no problem. Most weapons bounce off their armor, but the Chaos Blade handles them easily when two-handed. The archives themselves are filled with lore. A massive enchanted library inside a once glorious city like Anor Londo? This is insane. You'll find crystal enemies, magicians buffing them, and confusing pathways. There's also a unique mechanic here. This is the one place where you have to die to progress in the storyline. You also encounter Seath, the last boss of the area, very early. He's invincible though. No matter how much damage you deal, he will regenerate. So you're forced to die here. That's the reason why in a no death run I wouldn't count this one as a death, since it's a mandatory one. After dying you wake up in a prison cell, which means the archives also function as a prison. We escape. We fight through the area, open cells, loot corpses, and eventually reach the big cat Logan again. For mage builds, he's essential due to his powerful spells. We clear the upper sections and obtain the key to progress. After opening the large door and looting everything, we move deeper into the archives. There are ranged enemies and buffed enemies and many situations where you are outnumbered, but also unique rewards. One of them is a special crossbow, the Evelyn. Getting it requires a risky maneuver. The archives use rotating staircases. Normally my strategy is to wear gear that allows a mid-roll. And to drop down at the right moment. Well, you saw what happened. So I made my way back there and tried again. But even then, I failed. But okay, no matter what, we have to get it, since it's our personal challenge. 3rd time's the charm. With the correct timing it works, and I reach the bookshelf and obtain the Evelyn. Finally. I was happy to get it, but those extra deaths were really frustrating. Still, only 3 deaths so far. That isn't bad. And maybe there won't be any more, right? Spoiler alert, there will be. After some back and forth, I managed to free Logan and get the Firekeeper soul. Then I entered the courtyard. My goal was to defeat the crystal golems and rescue Sigmayr's daughter. There was still a questline I wanted to complete. Everything went according to plan until I entered the Crystal Caves. That was the lowest point of the run. At that point I had already played for 8 hours straight. My focus was gone. I rage quit the game and didn't want to continue the run. For me this run was dead already. But the next day I came back fresh. I told myself one thing: if I die again, no one will ever see this run. And spoiler alert, I didn't die again. But don't click the video away. I mean, still it might be interesting for you to see how I handle the remaining tailcuts and bosses and the difficult sections that are ahead of us. The Crystal Cave itself is manageable. I was mainly worried about getting the blue titanite slab. I mean, I hadn't played the game for almost a year now. This time I bought prism stones beforehand. Placing them one by one, I carefully made my way across the invisible paths. Eventually, I made it. And I realized I just had to follow the trail back. Luckily, everything worked out. I cleared all the remaining enemies, except for the moonlight butterflies, and reached the boss fog. I knew exactly how to cut Seath's tail. I stood near his crystal and waited. He destroys it himself, which stuns him for a brief moment, and that's the window. I cut off the tail and obtained the Moonlight Greatsword. From that point on, the fight was routine. Seath fell, and the nightmare of this area was finally over. Our next destination is the DLC area. Seized by a shadowy limb and dragged into the past, we find ourselves in the Sanctuary Garden. Of course, there's no way around it, and we start by fighting the Sanctuary Guardian. An impressive opponent. He has a very aggressive moveset, is agile and can deal serious damage. His appearance is especially interesting. He reminds me of a chimera, a mythical hybrid creature. I mean, we're looking at a lion with wings that can fly, equipped with a scorpion tail, and capable of unleashing electrical attacks. Truly epic. The tailcut itself is quick if you know how it works. I usually wait for a specific attack and then roll behind him. That gives you the short window you need where you can cut off the tail. After the fight, we move on into the Royal Wood. From the layout you quickly notice that it's basically the Darkroot Basin, the same area where you meet the mushroom people, just with different enemies this time. I like to imagine that these plant-like creatures, or even the stone giants with their massive axes, are the ancestors of the enemies we encounter in our time. That's actually something I should mention. I've been playing this game since release and have easily accumulated over 2,000 hours over the years, but I never really dove deep into the lore of the enemies, the areas or items, which honestly is a bit of a shame. I mean, sure, I've read item descriptions and picked up things from friends or videos, but I've forgotten just as much over time. Either way, the forest looks fantastic. I really like these streaks of corrupted, decayed landscape that hint at the abyss. They feel ominous, like a bad omen for this era. Special credit goes to the developers for this boss right here. Artorias the Abyss Walker. From a design standpoint, an absolute masterpiece. I still remember how hyped I was when the DLC first released. The main reason was him. He was already featured on the cover, and I just wanted to learn more about him. The fight itself lasts about a minute and a half. Watching it again for this video, I noticed how cautious I was. That's actually unusual for me. Normally I just go in aggressively and start attacking, but instinctively I must have remembered that this is not an enemy you should underestimate. During the fight, he tries to buff himself, but I manage to interrupt him every time. His fighting style is honestly admirable. He's fast, has great attack patterns, and even buffs himself mid-fight. This guy definitely has a story to tell. It's a shame that he's just a shell of what he once was after returning from the Abyss. After the fight, we move on into the city of Oolacile. You can only imagine how incredible this place must have been. The level design here clearly had a lot of thought put into it. I really like the overgrown state of the city. The enemies here seem like they were once the inhabitants of this place, before being twisted by the darkness into whatever they are now. Almost like they mutated into these monsters and went insane. The DLC has so much to offer. For example, you encounter a dark spirit here who mainly fights with a crossbow, which feels pretty unique to my opinion. You can also find special dark sorceries and pyromancies that are exclusive to this area. That alone gives players a good reason to come here. There's also a unique mechanic. Light can reveal hidden walls. And you can find these masks that speak single words when you use them, which is actually pretty cool for PvP. The silver pendant you find here is also extremely important for the fight against Manus. These darker indoor sections where you fight your way through buildings are visually stunning as well. The closer you get to the Abyss, the more you feel like you're approaching the source of the corruption. These dark blue, vein-like structures on the ground and the walls feel almost demonic. The sound design is also really well done. It's hard to describe, but there's this echo-like effect, for example when you gain souls. There's also a constant ambient noise mixed with the laughter of the enemies, which makes everything feel incredibly eerie. So atmosphere-wise, this is easily one of the best areas in the entire game. The Chasm of the Abyss, on the other hand, well, I get why it exists, and this is really criticism on a high level. I mean, up to this point everything in the DLC was perfect, but this area always felt a bit less exciting to me. The enemies are mostly these humanity sprites, and while you can meet Ziff here and trigger a different cutscene later, it's just, yeah, darker and a bit quieter overall. That's not meant to sound too negative, it's just how it feels to me after all this time. I mean, on my first playthrough it was completely different. Back then it felt mysterious and tense and incredibly important for the story. Now the fight against Manus, Father of the Abyss. I still consider this one of the toughest fights in the game. Honestly, only the Bed of Chaos or Gwyn himself give me a similar level of tension. Somehow it feels like I would deal less damage to him. His attacks are aggressive and unpredictable, and his dark magic would absolutely destroy me without the pendant. He's also just incredibly intimidating. If I hadn't fought him so many times before, this would look very different now. But I managed to beat him without dying, which I'm really happy about. I also find it interesting that Dusk of Oolacile seems to be trapped within him. I'm not entirely sure how that works lore-wise, but it's a fascinating detail. After Manus, we meet Gauk, Goch, Goof, however he's called. As far as I remember, he's blind. But he still manages to land an incredible shot, bringing down the dragon Kalameet, so we can fight him later. Since I want his armor, I decide to attack him afterwards. The same goes for the woman at Artoria's grave. It hurts a bit, but it has to be done. In general, before heading to Gwyn, I eliminate all NPCs to collect their unique gear, so Chester included. Right after that, we move on to Kalameet, the final DLC boss. And we still have one last task, the final Tailcut in the game. I have to admit I struggle a bit here. My timing wasn't as clean as it used to be, and I got hit more often than I would like to admit. Normally I try to keep my distance to bait a specific attack. When he hovers in the air, I roll left twice at the right moment. That puts me right under his tail, giving me a small window to cut it off. It took a few attempts this time, but I got it. After that, the fight itself was a bit messy, but manageable. Interestingly, I noticed something afterwards. I got a grey slab, a blue one and a white slab from the DLC, but no red one. I was pretty sure each slab exists here, but I refused to look it up, so there's a chance I actually failed that part of the challenge. Before moving on, I remembered something important, the fight against Gwyndolin. So after finishing the DLC, I head to the Dark Moon tomb and unlock the secret boss.
Mark the words of myself, Gwyndolin. Thou shalt not go unpunished.
Gwyndolin isn't particularly difficult once you know what to do. His attacks are unique, and the mechanic of him constantly teleporting further away makes the fight feel different, yes, but overall it's also manageable.
Oh, heretic, swathed in dark, an eternal curse upon thee.
Next we head to the Firelink Shrine to meet Sigmayr's daughter. After freeing her earlier, she's at the Firelink Shrine, and when you talk to her, she eventually ends up at the Ash Lake, where she had to kill her father. I'm not entirely sure about all the details there, but I remember that she had to kill him in the past already. So this wasn't the first time she had to do it. But feel free to correct me in the comments section if you want. After getting her slab, we attack her. You know, for the souls. Yeah, from there we go to Andre. You all will hate me for this, but I need the hammer he drops, so I attack him. And yeah, have some struggle. But also here I managed to kill this guy and get the hammer that he drops. And then we go to the Catacombs blacksmith for his gear as well. After that, Guinevere. I mean, that one hurts the most for me, to be honest. But it unlocks additional enemies and I really wanted to fight them, to be honest. Yeah, lastly there's the giant blacksmith. We have to kill this guy too. I mean, he also drops a unique item, so yeah. Then we go back to the archives for Logan. The merchant for the boss armors is also a target for me. I mean, I buy the armor of Ornstein because in the New Game Plus I plan to kill Smoke the last, so that I can get his armor then. And finally, we go to the red dragon on the bridge. Surprisingly, this one goes down very quickly. I mean, I already put this armor on for the fire resistance again. But okay, I will take that too. At this point, everything is done. I think. We place the souls of the 4 lords into the Lord vessel and then open the path to the Kiln of the First Flame. Before entering, I use all my consumable souls to reach the level 100. I mean almost every soul. I don't use the 2 hero souls, the 2 significant hero souls. Yeah, and then it's time, I would say. This area has always fascinated me. It feels like the end of the world. Ash everywhere and black knights as the remnants of Gwyn's army. I once heard they were originally silver knights, burned by dragonfire. Not sure if that's true, but it fits thematically. At the fog gate, there's no turning back. The fight against Gwyn starts with a parry, just to show that I can do it. But I don't rely on it. I prefer a more honorable fight. Everything goes incredibly well, until I start putting pressure on myself. I mean, I realized to this point I didn't get hit a single time, and now I wanted to finish the fight without getting hit a single time. And this mental pressure almost cost me the run. I had to back off, I had to heal and reset mentally. So I waited for the right opportunity and positioned myself behind this spiky rock here. After that, everything clicks again. I mean, I already got hit now, so the pressure is gone, and now the performance of the fight wasn't that important to me anymore. And with that, I chose to let the Age of Dark begin. I mean, after everything we have done so far, it just felt right. If you enjoyed the run, I'd really appreciate a like. And if you want to see the full journey, episode by episode, consider subscribing. I'll be uploading them weekly from here on out. And if you're into Minecraft building as well, I've got a new series coming soon, focused entirely on creating large-scale structures. Feel free to check that out too. But for now, enjoy the final cutscene.
My lord, bless thy safe return. Let Carth and Fraft serve your highness. We are here to serve your highness. Let the true dark be cast upon the world. Our